Thanks for having us today. I'll shorten my comments because of others who have said similar, but I'm going to make a slightly different argument, I think. My name is Erik Edoff, Superintendent of L'Anse Creuse Public Schools. Currently the president of the K-12 Alliance of Michigan, which represents over 500,000 students in southeastern Michigan, 6 counties. Neighbor of where Senator Pohanke used to teach, and a proud Kalamazoo College graduate for Senator Camilleri there. Yeah, that's right. So I think the concept of, we're here to not oppose the concept of returning because of, in some cases, a desperate need for educators to return into the workforce because of openings that exist. We're here on the restriction of the amount because I do believe that amount is sufficient for some part-time work. I do believe that amount is sufficient for coaches in many situations. It is just not sufficient for what I believe to be well compensated, not highly enough, but well compensated teachers who work with some of our most high-need students. In my own district, we've been trying to add social workers and counselors to deal with the quite frankly, mental health crisis that exists right now in our state. And we are 7 people short of our goal. And we have lost people to retirement who have gone into private practice and they're earning their retirement now working in public practice. They don't have an option to return to us. And the $15,000 per calendar year would not be sufficient for them to return to us. There are a number of other positions in that situation. And I just want to speak to the fact that all of you have been very, very instrumental in helping schools with many of the things you've done over the past several months. With budget support, with other restrictions, with pipeline programs. There's a lot of grow your own programs that have started. And I think there is long-term movement into increasing the pipeline of educators into our system. This is a short-term solution. This is not something that we look to be the end-all in order to enhance and draw more people into the profession of education. This is a short-term solution, but we need every tool we can get. We need every tool we can get in a situation that we wish we were not in, but we are in many situations. And I just want to point out that we are at a competitive disadvantage because of this. We really face a competitive disadvantage for our ability to return recent retirees into our classrooms to work with kids who need them the most, to fill a maternity leave, for example. If we have a teacher go out on a maternity leave to take care of their own family, a maternity leave they deserve, a paternity leave, someone needs to leave for surgery or to take care of an ailing relative, we cannot fill that position with a recent retiree, which may be our best option because they're already highly trained, they're already well learned and have knowledge of the practices of that type of a classroom. So I think I'll just conclude by saying we are really at a competitive disadvantage in this area. Our neighboring states do not offer this restriction. In Ohio, for example, it is, I believe, currently a 60-day waiting period, and then there's no restriction on returning someone into the system. And I believe it was a bipartisan movement on that in that state as well. And in our own state, that restriction doesn't exist in other public sector jobs. Police, fire, state employees, county employees, state employees do not have a restriction of time or salary amount to return into those positions. And that's how staffing is accomplished in many of those organizations right now. We're just asking for the same thing. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. I want to introduce Superintendent Gibson from Eastpointe Schools to kind of give some specific examples.
Thank you so much, Erik Edoff. My name is Christy Gibson, and I'm the superintendent of Eastpointe Community Schools. And with me today, 3 of my Board of Education have come in support. They are here for the MASB Day at the Capitol tomorrow and found out that I would be providing testimony and came in support of the superintendent. You couldn't ask for better board members than to have your team here with you today. Currently today in Eastpointe Community Schools, I have 14 classroom teacher vacancies. I have 28 special education teacher vacancies. And that is because Erik and other superintendents, I'm teasing Erik because he is here, but there was a migratory pattern along the 8-mile corridor serving the most needy, high intense children in our communities. And what is happening in the field of public education is there is a migration closer to home in areas where they perceive the work is easier, where there is more money. Eastpointe Community Schools is not able to pay teachers the same amount of money as other school districts, and my children have more needs, and they deserve more. They deserve what we want for our own children. What is happening in the middle of the school year is I will have staff resign and leave, leaving me with teacher vacancies. Currently, I have a principal of one elementary school stepping in a 4th grade classroom because a teacher is not available. I have been building pathways. We have a teacher residency program where we put $500,000 for ESSER funds to pay for people to go to school. I am training my own teachers. We are training in context using real life children. We need to stop fighting over children and start fighting for them. This bill does not do enough. We need to remove the restrictions and allow teachers to come back, because when Lance Cruz has a vacancy and my teacher lives near a Lance Cruz school, they will apply and leave. If other school districts can bring back their retired staff, it allows for more continuity in my organization throughout the school year. We need to be looking at Georgia, which has some reparations and penalties for mid-year transfers. I would argue that we need to allow and encourage teachers to finish the year commitment of the school calendar year, be able to retire, choose to rest over the summer for a number of days, and then choose to return. We have not been paying teachers the funds that they deserve for a number of years. It was nice today to finally see Anthony need to allow and encourage teachers to finish the year commitment of the school calendar year, be able to retire, choose to rest over the summer for a number of days, and then choose to return. We have not been paying teachers the funds that they deserve for a number of years. It was nice today to finally see Anthony Estelle, IRL, in real life, because I have been running my retirement calculator for 5 years trying to figure out when is the best time for me to leave this profession. You don't want me leaving this profession. You don't want my peers leaving the profession, and many of them bought 5 years and are doing that. So while we have this gap in experience and we're working to cultivate new talent, we need more flexibility, not more restrictions. Paying a teacher, a veteran teacher who has worked 30 years in the profession, $30,000 to come back and deal with students' challenges that we have not seen before. We have new challenges in public education. We are not doing enough to take care of our precious cargo. We need more coaches. We need more teachers. We need more people coming back and helping to build capacity in the state of Michigan. The birth rates are declining. They are not in my community. They are declining in other communities. So our community needs it more than ever. We need highly skilled, highly qualified teachers. And if they won't come to Eastpointe Community Schools, I need them to come and train the capacity that we are working to build. We need to eliminate barriers in legislation that prohibits and hogties schools. I am tired of trying to figure out the rules to be able to run a school and serve the needs of the children of my community. There is a gap in capacity, and we need our retired educators to feel valued and respected. It would also behoove us to encourage them not to leave the profession. When I see women who I have graduated with who are entering their final year of the profession, that is a problem for us as a society. So I appreciate this Senate. I appreciate the budget. We have been able to do more to our teacher pay scale. We compressed a 30-step scale down to 15, but the maximum pay of our teachers is still $80,000. 15 years to get to $80,000. We can do better for our children in this state, and I don't think that this is enough. We need to reduce the challenges of interpretation of law into practice of school districts, and our children deserve that. Thank you. Paul Bodiya.
Thank you again for bringing this issue forward and allowing us to provide input on this topic. I am Paul Bodiya. I'm the CFO at Macomb Intermediate School District. And outside of one of our typical responsibilities, we've taken upon ourselves to spend time addressing concerns with regard to the retirement system particularly in the areas of making sure that it's adequately funded to allow it to meet its current and future obligations. We've done a number of things in terms of recommendations on various assumptions, various benefits, and various funding levels. Some to argue against some of the bad ideas that people have previously proposed. We come from the general belief that reporting units, individuals, and the state have an obligation to make the system whole and to minimize any efforts to avoid the related retirement costs. To minimize any efforts to avoid the related retirement costs. So I want to address first a comment asked by Senator McDonald-Rivet when she asked about whether or not the current legislation and/or this bill does anything to make sure that the system remains whole when we have retirees coming back. The answer is no. We don't do anything. We do not require districts or reporting units to pay in toward the UAL, the 20.96 that Anthony Estelle talked about. That's been in place for a long time. It needs to change. It's irresponsible. So as part of our proposal, we are suggesting, in addition to eliminating the 9-month separation period and eliminating the cap as it's previously discussed, that we believe all entities need to contribute the 20.96 unfunded liability rate for any retiree that comes back to work. You would do that if you're replacing, if you're hiring back a retiree because you can't find someone. But once you find that person, you're going to pay the 20.96 on that person. Why wouldn't you pay it on the retiree? They're an employee. That's first and foremost. Secondly, to the comment, and I'm suggesting this, that by eliminating the 9-month separation period and going to a 30-day separation period, which we've previously had, that might encourage more people to retire sooner. Well, if it does, that's great. But we believe that we need to pay the costs that might harm the system. One, the 20.96, and secondly, to the extent that those people now are burdened in terms of the health care required to be paid for those people, we also believe the health care should be paid for by the districts hiring those retirees. If they don't pay the health care, they should at least reimburse the retirement system for that portion that the retirement system is paying for those people, at least until what would be considered a normal retirement age. We believe those suggestions make the system whole, don't harm the system, and allow people to retire and come back to work without any penalty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I might be misunderstanding this, but the concept of retiring and then being away for a bit and then coming back and you've all mentioned that, and trust, I am the daughter of a retired teacher, retired special ed teacher.
Does she want to come back to work?
No, she likes retirement. I feel like what you're describing is more of a sabbatical rather than actually, and I don't know if our schools allow this, and I might ask Dr. Kennedy, because I see her in the audience, whether we allow this or not, and maybe that's a whole other can of worms I'm about to open, but I feel like that's what you're describing, like this space where if someone retires, and then wants to come back, because let's face it, sometimes you just miss the kids, you do, right? I taught higher ed. So
we need flexibility.
And that flexibility, and I'm wondering, I feel like what we're talking about, what this bill could have the potential to do, and I'm not trying to mess with Rep. Colasar's legislation here, is a sabbatical. More so than we're retiring and divorcing from the schools, from education, but we're going to come back and kind of date.
I think that the notion that someone would pre-consider, their future when they're retiring, I think is maybe being overthought. I think this issue is one where people are set on retiring and, are pretty happy to be doing that for whatever reasons, family reasons, personal reasons, whatever. But then their phone rings because we're calling it in September saying, we just couldn't fill your job, or we just couldn't fill this job, or the neighboring district calls and says, we need these types of positions. And then it maybe creates a reconsideration, it creates an opportunity of reconsideration. You've been away for a month or two, you did a little traveling, you've relaxed, something like that. So I think my response is more not that it's a preconceived idea that, okay, I know already I'm just going to be gone for X number of days and then we'll return and that's sort of my plan. I think we're talking about people who would fully intentionally be separated from the system and not be intending to return, but we are the ones seeking them back. We're the ones that suddenly someone has to go out for surgery on October 15th that didn't expect it, and I need someone highly qualified in there to work for 7-8 months, for example, and call the ISD, and the ISD says, hey, this person, these are the list of people that retired from other districts, and they could help you out. So I think that's kind of the thought process that I have, because that's what we face right now. And I guess the last thing I'll say is I'm concerned that a 9-month period of time is too long out of the system, not for everyone, but for many.
So building on that question, though, in Eastpointe Community Schools, we've been providing exit interviews. We have a very high turnover. You can see that in the rep report. We definitely have some cultural work to do, but we've also been the lowest paid teachers in Macomb County for the past decade, with our teachers taking a 25% pay cut to keep the district financially solvent. So I can summarize why teachers leave Eastpointe Community Schools in 3 bullet points. It's working conditions, the challenges that students are coming with, the lack of resources and other capable adults inside the system. 2, it's all of the restrictive nature that we put onto student discipline. We have some students in our system who are very disruptive and very challenging to support. And teachers don't feel that anybody's been listening to what they are saying about the crisis of what our children are coming to school with on a regular basis. And the 3rd reason is the compensation and the pay. And I have people who have left scathing remarks in their exit interview about public education. It isn't even about my institution. It is about the state of public education and how they feel and how we as a society have devalued the profession that we so desperately need to become economically very competent, right? We need all of these minds and bodies, and we need them at a higher place. And so when you look at those 3 reasons that teachers are leaving the profession, then Senator Geis, what are we doing to incentivize teachers to stay in the profession? What are the things in legislation that we can look at easing the burden on our teachers in the classroom? But I also want to go to that piece about the sabbatical. We have employees who have retired and come back in Eastpointe Community Schools, a dangerous amount of them. So dangerous that one day they could decide not to come and I would be in a classroom again like I was 3 years ago, right? And so what they love about coming back as a retired educator is all of a sudden there's flexibility in a profession where there was no flexibility, right? I get to go to the bathroom when I want to go to the restroom. Maybe I get to take a Friday off and I don't have my union steward coming to talk about my pattern of needing to take Fridays off. We have these conditions inside of education and these rules to be able to run and facilitate 5 days a week, 6 hours a day of school. And so sometimes retiring feels like closing the door on that, and then coming back feels like I have control again as an employee and I am respected for what I bring to the field. And so if we can create that feeling of respect again in our retired teachers that we value, let's pay them what they deserve, what they've been deserved to get paid their entire career. We shouldn't be nickel and diming right now. If you want to sunset it, open it back up, allow us to pay, allow us to contribute to ORS so that we don't create another problem on that side, right? Allow us to do this in a way that then, and sunset it. Give us 3 years, give us 5 years to continue to live into all the other work that you've been funding in the teacher pipeline and the teacher residency pathways, and give it a time bound. But what we do in public education is we have small cycles of review, right? Let's expect some reports out. How are the staffing things happening now that we've made those changes? Sorry, a little longer, but I had data in my brain and Erik gave me the lean, so.
No, I didn't. I just couldn't.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bodiya, for your idea. I'm just thinking contributing to ORS is okay if you don't bring them back as contractors, right? Like, I'm just-
So we also are of the belief that we should be avoiding paying into the retirement system by privatization.
Okay. Just food for thought. I did some math too. It was different from Mr. Latvis's. So you say you have a highly paid teacher. I'm glad it's 80 now. I was making 70. I was at the top of my pay scale.
Divided by 187 days.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could come back making $100,000 and work for 8 weeks and then work for another 8 weeks, $100,000. It's just you can't, yeah, right, Dan? Yeah, at that, so if you take 100,000 divided by 52 weeks in a year and then multiply by 8 weeks, that's 15,000 something. So if you brought someone back at $100,000, they could work 8 weeks before their $15,100 was up from September to December, and then do it again from between January and May for other. You know, if you negotiated your salary at $200,000 to come back, then you could work 4 weeks. So you can make bigger amounts of, but you have to work shorter amounts of time.
We need 187 days, though.
Okay, but I'm just saying, a teacher could come back, or somebody at $100,000 and work 2 8-week periods. Now, if my math is wrong, I'm gonna be very embarrassed, but I don't think it is. So, Senator DeMoose.
Thank you. Just quickly, I mean, I can't get my mind around the idea of collecting full retirement and basically a full salary at the same time. There's not, I don't know where other industry, why are you doing things? It seems to me the real challenge has got to be to try and prevent people from retiring so early. I mean, if we're doing this with Social Security. It moved from full retirement age is now 67. It's going to keep moving throughout our time period. Do you think we should be looking at ways to lengthen out the time before somebody retires at all? Because that solves the problem too. Just keep
We
working.
should be advising teachers to stay in the profession.
Right, and not retire. Just keep their jobs, right? Or what am I wrong? How is that wrong?
I think that the issue is conceptually having people stay in the profession and not have to approach it from this is correct. But that's not what we're faced with, unfortunately, is through shortages that actually exist. And I understand your question about the idea of someone receiving their retirement when they've separated and a salary as well. But I mean, the facts are that other public sector positions in the state are able to do that. I mean, that's allowable across other sectors. So we're just asking for the same advantage that other positions have that advantage of. And again, in a situation where staffing was more robust and the pipeline of teachers was increasing, which we believe it will in the long term, this would not be a recommendation. This would not be an issue that we would want to solve this issue with.
In addition to that, you can't just implement that age range that you'd like to suggest Social Security has with existing employees. You could do that for future employees.
I'm not proposing any specific age range. I'm just saying throughout the country, retirement dates are being pushed off because we realize we're living longer and a variety of factors. And there are other industries where if you come out of retirement, great, you stop getting your retirement benefits and you go back to a salary. I'm just having a hard time. I feel like our push should be, how do we keep and you're right, they are valuable in this society. No question, we agree on all that, so.
As a teacher, I wouldn't mind. 9 months seems like a nice breather to me, and then I come back and there's no barrier at all. You can shake your head no, but that's my experience as a classroom teacher for almost 20 years. Senator Camilleri.
Thank you. I just want a quick comment to Senator DeMoose in terms of the types of other positions that are similar to this concept. I have known many in the Downriver region from police and fire who retire from their department, say as a chief or as a lieutenant, making a significant pension. They deserve it. They are on the front lines of protecting all of us. But then they also go become a chief at another city, making $100,000+, and they receive their $75,000 a year pension on top of that from the other municipality. And so public sector jobs like that, that exists every day, and it happens all the time. I have one of my city managers is a retired police from River Rouge, and he's the city manager in Woodhaven. And he has been doing that for my entire 7 years of public service. And so when we see talented people who are leaving public service, I think we should try to keep them in public service, which I think is the argument that we're hearing today.
Thank you for your testimony. I will, Clerk, would you please read the cards?
Paul Lebnow, the Elementary and Middle School Principals Association supports the bill. David Randalls, Oakland Schools opposes the bill. Robert McCann, K-12 Alliance of Michigan opposes the bill. Trevor Bulmer, Comstock Park Public